there are different aspects to your personality and your being. And one of those is very commonly referred to as your ego. And your ego is probably best described as your personality. So it runs the day-to-day shop, meaning it makes sure you get from point A to point B. You're getting dressed, you're prioritizing, you're doing. It really supports you. It's an essential part of you being a human being. And it kind of keeps you on point. It keeps you on point. The problem that we have run into as a culture is that we have become primarily ego-based. We think we are our personalities. And that is where a lot of our pain and suffering comes in, because when we identify with our personalities, we become limited. When we identify with our personalities as a human being, well, guess what? Human beings die. So we become very fearful of death, because we believe we're just this one person having this one experience. So there becomes like so much intensity and anxiety and all of these very, very heavy emotions around day-to-day stuff. The reason why ego death is so important is because, and I don't even like I don't like the term ego death, because it's not about killing anything. This isn't about like some part of your personality. It's about understanding what part of your personality you've given too much power to, or what part of your being that you've given too much power to. What voice, because inside of our heads, we have conversations. We have different voices for different things. And oftentimes we don't recognize that delineation. And so we'll let our ego run things and make decisions for us that our higher self should be making, or our soul, or whenever we're in that perspective where we're at peace with everything. We're at peace with being a human being. The soul is the part of us that connects with the universe, connects with God. The soul is the part of us. Did you ever have an experience where you're like, how do I know that? Or why am I so interested in this? Or why do I really excel at that? Or why? Well, those are soul-based connections that you're having. That timeless part of you, that eternal part of you. When it comes to ego death, from my perspective, it's better phrased as balancing out the levels of power that each of these voices plays with you. Because what you really ideally want to be in a position with is having your higher self or your soul really running the show in terms of your bigger decisions. So for instance, the decisions that you make when you decide who you're going to be in a romantic relationship with. You don't want your ego making that. But how many people have gotten married or have had a baby or done things or gotten involved in a relationship because of who the person was, or it was a financially good thing to do, or it was safe, or it was I wanted to do this and this was the person here, or my parents said I was getting too old, or all of my classmates were and this is who I was with. So when you make those key life decisions out of that ego perspective, that's where most of our suffering happens. But when you make your life decisions from a soul perspective, meaning like for a romantic partner, choosing to commit to someone because of how they make you feel about yourself when you're with them, choosing a partner who is interdependent, meaning they make you feel secure and you know that you're the most important thing in the world to them, but they also allow you to be you. And they allow you to feel your emotions, and and you get a sense of security with them that any external circumstance could happen and it doesn't matter as long as you're with that person. Now you tell me, who would you rather be with? So when we can understand how critical the decisions are that these aspects of ourselves make, that's when we can shift out of the ego and move into the perspective, because perspectives are almost like, they're like what are those goggles that you wear that are like 3D glasses, where you put the perspective on and then you see the whole scenario through that perspective. Well, when you're in the perspective of ego, a lot of times there's anxiety, there's fear, there's scarcity, meaning if I don't do this now, is it ever going to happen for me? But when you put the perspective of the soul on, that's when you see things from the point of view of if it's not the right person, then I'm not interested, then it's not the right time. That's when you have the view of, I'm never going to miss my boat, the ship that kind of comes in with the things that I want on it. It's all about timing, and I trust the timing, and you're at peace with that, because that's just the part of you that you want to be making those big decisions. So when you can think of it as in the perspective of, putting it on like goggles, then it becomes easier when you're in the moment to be like, oh, what headset do I have on? Am I looking at this through my ego, or am I looking at this through my higher self and my soul? Because you don't need to go to the grocery store and pick out what yogurt you're going to get and be like, I got to get into the higher perspective of my soul to really make sure I made the right decision here. But again, when you're talking about partnership, or you're talking about like your professional path, or you're talking about healing a relationship with a parent, you want to be in that perspective. You have to be in that perspective to really make the decisions and be the person who you want to show up as, that ultimately down the road is the person that you want to manifest into. So the importance of the balance when it comes to looking at your ego versus your higher self is all about recognizing where the value of it lies, which is in the ego is valuable in creating that structure of your daily life. That ego is important in, again, just making sure the flow of life happens. But there's just a ceiling on the level. It's almost like looking at it from the perspective of like a company. Like, you're not going to give decisions in terms of like major financial decisions or capital decisions or investments that need to be made. You're not going to give that work to the receptionist. And I think that's a really good illustration, because you almost have to look at it as though you're kind of your own business, or you're your own organization. And your president and CEO is your higher self. And that is who should be making the decisions when it comes to your partner, your professional path, you're pursuing your passions, your creativity, those types of things. And really looking at the ego as supporting you from a framework perspective of your daily life. So your ego is going to be the one that is going to be prioritizing. Your ego is the one that's going to be like, all right, what's next? What's next? And that is really essential and it's important. So that's why to frame it in terms of an ego death isn't the most constructive way of doing that, because it's about right sizing your ego and putting it on the right seat on the bus. It belongs on the bus. It's cleaning the store. Like if you're a store, this thing's making sure the bathrooms are clean, the lights are on, you've got enough light bulbs in the back, everything's ready to go. It is not making the decision as to the types of products we should be selling, or what the building should look like. All of those bigger decisions should be coming from your soul and your higher self. So when you think of it that way, it becomes a little bit easier to create some coherence in the things that should fall under the ego's job description, and then the things that should fall under the higher self's job description. So I think that's probably a good way of describing where that relationship best fits in.